Welcome to another BRUNCH, your Sunday rendezvous, episode number 19 on the great January Sunday 29, 2023. This is the co-host directly for the beautiful country of Thailand, called Frenchie. And we have to go all the way to Ontario, Ottawa, capital. Mr. Marko Larabi is in the house.
Good morning, Coach. This time of year, it's in the NHL they call this the dog days of winter, right? Like it's that time of season, after January, after the winter holidays, before the All-Star break, all the players have lots of injuries and it's crappy outside. So it's the dog days of winter, guys. So for this episode here is dedicated to everybody who's got the winter blahs, and hopefully we can bring a little light into your Sunday morning. It's a little gray and windy and snowy here in Ottawa. So, it's the dog days of winter, Coach, but All-Star game coming up. So we're going to get into some interesting hockey here down the stretch. It's an exciting time of year. So really excited to talk about some Habs.
Yeah, absolutely about this. We are right now at the end of the week, preview week, very quiet around the league. It looks like the All-Star game is already start for many teams. Many teams already on the on the week off. They played the last game today, last night, and then some of them Montreal have only one more game next week, and then they're going to be off for 10 to 12 days before they return on the ice. So it'll be interesting to follow up at this next Sunday. Of course, we have the All-Star game weekend in Florida at sunrise. So it'll be interesting. Nick Suzuki is the only one for the Montreal Canadiens, but we have a lot of things to talk about because I think it was a week very. First of all, excited, but a lot of news, a lot of injuries to talk about again. And then a call up for the junior. We're going to talk about him. And then we have a couple of things to definitely to talk about review week at news and a preview of the following week next week. Anything you want to add before we jump on the warm-up clip?
I'm already warming up in my head, Coach. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Talk about injury, Mr. Marko, about the Montreal Canadiens. Well, we talk about the Hockey National Show, the BRUNCH with injuries. First of all, Karen is out for this morning with some kind of knee injury. And then the backup, we call it a backup. So like the backup goaltender. I think we need an emergency call up at some point.
E-bug.
Because now we called Nick Larivière, but unfortunately he was sick this morning. So look like everybody will be have to hanging up with you and me. Whatsoever, we're going to be fine, but we feel that we wish the best for both of them to speed recovery and to be ready for next week. We're going to return next Sunday, the first week of the February weekend, Mr.
We tried to call Owen BECK to come on because he's really used to coming in as an emergency replacement, but he's on his way back to Peterborough, so he wasn't able to join us. So yeah, that's a good idea, Coach. We'll get in an e-bug to as a
maybe we should call back Matt Berlin, the goaltender, the Edmonton Oilers. Jumped last night between the pipe for Edmonton. We're going to talk about this at the show tonight. But look, we have a couple of things to talk about. At the beginning of the show, we do this always the same thing. We're going to talk about the review of the weekly for the Montreal Canadiens this week. And first of all, they have a record of 0-2-1. Unfortunately, after a 3-1-0 last week, they come back. We're going to talk about what happening to them. 3-game last week. They started Tuesday against the Boston Bruins by a score 4-2. Then Detroit set on the overtime and a goal to Fabi Thursday night. And then last night was a bit not the hand. I think some team already in the motion of All-Star game already. And they have already some kind of plan to go left and right around North America, maybe Mexico, who knows? But would be interesting to see that. Ottawa went by the scores 5-0, so they gave us a bit more time. We have only you and me, so go around, overview the 3-game, what you pay a little bit more attention.
Well, I think the week started off really well. Like I was on earlier this week, Coach, where we talked about this Boston game, and I don't think there's any Hab fan that can be ashamed of the effort that they put in that game. Like that was a coin toss game. I don't think the score really shows the real essence of the game. empty net goal in the final. I think it was like the final 3 minutes or something like that. So really solid game against Boston. Emergence of that Laval line, just they were playing well leading into this week, but this week, they really stepped it up and had a huge game in both Boston and Detroit. Detroit was, I'd say again a really nice effort there. Jake Allen struggled a little bit, kind of getting his feet under him again after being off for several weeks, right? So, but he came back and battled and actually was probably the reason why they got a point out of that game. So good for Jake Allen. Um, Last night, again, this score, I think it properly reflects the game, but in a way, it doesn't completely, right? Like that first period, Belzile starts off the game, rings one off the post. There's another couple of posts I think throughout the game. Very different game, if Belzile. And, we're all kind of hoping like he so deserves his first NHL goal, right? Like we all love the story of Belzile, like him grinding throughout his whole career, 31 years old. It'd be so awesome for him to get that first goal. So deserving, but not last night. So it's one of those things, coach, like with a team like this that is really undermanned, we know that it's going to be a bit tougher to score goals right now. So it's really got to be by committee. So not being able to take advantage of that yesterday. I won't say that Montembeault was weak last night, but he just didn't. He just wasn't at the same level as maybe throughout the week. And Forsberg had a pretty good game, made some big saves for them, right? So shots were pretty equal. I'd say slight advantage in terms of territorial play from Ottawa, but overall it's pretty equal until the doors got blown off in the second period, which is very similar for Ottawa. They kind of did the same thing against Toronto the night before. So like definitely the third period was a bit concerning. No shots I think for the first 13 or 14 minutes. So you're some questionable kind of like bench management last night too. Like if you look at the ice times, not really distributed evenly. I don't know if coach, we've talked about this before, right? Saying we coaching to win. He's seeing, okay, there's only one more game till the All-Star break, so I'm gonna really lean on my top players. But you didn't see the Laval line as much. They didn't get as much ice time. There's a couple times where that you're only have Owen Beck up for one game, right? Because of the rules of an emergency call up, you're only allowed to he's only allowed to miss one game, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more. But it's his one game, right? And he played him a little bit, but I think it would have been cool to put him out like when the net was empty, or maybe on the second power play unit. That second power play unit, both power play units are just looking terrible. Like Matheson is not doing the job quarterbacking that power play. I find very lack of imagination, I would say. So yeah, it was again like the beginning of the week was a good continuity from what we saw the week before. We're all really excited about how this team is going in the right direction in terms of playing the right way. If I don't want to bore people with the analytics and advanced analytics, but if you look at the analytics, it was a bit of a step back in terms of some of the scoring chances from the middle from the house. Like from the front of the net. There's a little bit more than but good quality opponent against Boston. So it's going to be hard to kind of hold them back. But and then on the other side of the ice, I felt other than Doc and other than the Laval line, not getting to the center of the ice enough. And we've talked about this a lot, coach. Like you have to pay the price to score goals, especially with a depleted lineup. You're not going to pass the puck into the net and have these beautiful like you can score off the rush. Sometimes Montreal is a rush team, but in order to score goals in the NHL, you have to be in front of the net and not getting enough opportunities from the middle. So overall, good week. But like you said, I think some of them might already be in Aruba after that second period last night.
Yeah, I know we're a bit more focusing on the last game yesterday. I think we said Montembeault, On the flip side, Forsberg make the big save at the right time. I cannot. Second period was like whatever it was only 1-0. They make a couple of save back to back to back and keep the team 0-0 anyway for his team. And then
Yeah,
we learned from the we know it would be rough for rookies. Last night Albert got 2 goals of the first three goals. He was on the ice, one hit the skate, but he still the first one it was 2 versus 1. Not point Jakai. My point is we know going to have some mistake by rookies. The last goal of the game, like a turnover by Justin
Aaron.
Barron, right? But Jakai was in front of Barron, right? You don't want to leave your last player behind the last one because he have a turnover, but he got a breakaway. That's happening yesterday. But so it was not good point, Jakai. Just like we're going to learn by the mistake about this. Point by Martin Saint Louis did not play. I think the last 4 minutes of the game with empty net changed a bit of TOI, but I tell you then the Laval should have a little bit more time. The Owen Beck, the only thing I was said, if you put him on the power play, the players on the bench will be a little bit more upset because now it's a why to bring a guy for 1 game or 2 game, whatever it is, and then you let him play on power play when he doesn't. So I don't think so. They want to protect the rest of the room. If not, possibly Owen Beck would be on the power play. I think that's
I would agree with you, Coach. Like if the power play was not last in the league, I might agree with you. But to me, it's actually kind of a bit of a challenge, to those guys, right? Like I am all for maintaining, kind of like that. I understand it's a political thing and all that, but maybe it's time to send a
As
bit
it's
of
the
a
same thing.
message.
Why to call him or not to call Anthony Richard last night, right? Why not to
Yeah,
call Xavier Zuano last night and not why to call the junior? So you can see you always have to be a little bit more caution about that when you call some stuff like this. We call a player nouveau. Like you bring a guy from Laval, you put him all the way in the power play, everything like that. It's a little bit concerned about this. It's just you have to try to protect your locker room, unfortunately, but that's the rules and the NHL or the hockey sport. Montreal now with 0-2-1 are 20, 26-4. Durant drop at 54 now. They are 8 in the division, Atlantic, and 26 in the standing. They are now close with Vancouver and San Jose a bit closer to them, but still lead in front of them. And unfortunately for them, and Florida won yesterday at one
oh
tied the
man,
game, and then one overtime was very discouraged for me to see that. Not
I'll
because I don't
I'll
like
take
the
a
Panthers. We're looking for the pick. But at the end of the night, with that W, Mr. Marco, they drop and the standing anyway. So I'll just give you an idea. They finished the week with 2-1. That was a really hard week for them and for the Florida Panthers. But at the end of the day, I think they will save their vacation with that W and now looking a little bit forward. But the race, and that race, it's not easy. If we put Washington,
yeah,
Pittsburgh, right? Buffalo is in the race right now. You have Islanders in
Islanders.
the race. You have to consider Detroit, whatever, they have 3 games behind, and Ottawa is only 6 points behind with 3 games. If they win Montreal next week and they win the first 2, they are now at the same thing. So we talk about 5 to 7 teams. When I'm talking about not for on the wild card, Marco, I'm talking about for the ranking of the Florida Panthers. So would be very hard for them to make the playoff. But and you never know what could happen. But they have a good stat, and then it's sick. They just cannot get that
Yeah,
with the goaltender. Lucky for them, they have no game anymore, so they'll give time for Bobrovsky, Spencer Knight to come back for the
yeah,
following for the rest of the game. But only 30 game, and they have 54 points, if I can recall it, and they have to reach about 95. So they have to get about
yeah.
another 41 point and 30 game. That will give them about an approximately at least 18 to 20 W in the last 30 game. When you don't play for the season over 520 winning percentage, it's a really a difficult mission to do.
No, yeah. And again, they have a tough schedule too, right? Like the opponents, I believe they're right there in the top five in terms of toughest schedules.
Yeah,
And you know what? Like Alex Lyon, if you watch the games, like he's been giving them good goaltending too, right? Like you could argue that, especially last night, he held them in there pretty good. But you watch those Florida games and they're battling, right? Like they have slow starts for some reason. Like they always kind of come out slow, but man, those it reminds me of their teams from last year, where they had the ability to come back. So they're playing with a lot of heart, but Yeah, like I'll take responsibility for that one, coach, because after Boston scored, I think there was like 30, 40 seconds left. I changed the channel and I was like celebrating. And then just for fun, I wanted to rub it in, so I wanted to go back and see, kind of, oh, they're going to lose. And then all of a sudden they're on 3-on-3 overtime. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And then
Yeah,
boom,
one
they
point
scored in
four
overtime.
second at the end of the game.
Yeah,
And by the way, Bennett
yeah,
scored his own net. I don't know if you saw the goal.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he hit the ball like crazy about that. So
yeah,
now we have
yeah.
to move on to the who stood out for in the week, Mr. Marco.
Yeah, like I'm going to cheat on this one. Like, you know what? I think the obvious one is the Laval line. Everybody's been talking about it all week, right? So I'll take somebody maybe that has gotten a lot of criticism, over the last since he's been here. I'll go Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson to me has been really energetic, really physical, and is finishing, right. Like he's putting the puck in the net at a much higher rate than we've been used to. On a pace for what, like 22, 23 goals or something like that, maybe even a bit more. But more than just the goals, it's really his leadership. Like really leading by example. Lots of energy, lots of hitting. Everybody's heard my opinion on him. Like I don't think he has a really high hockey IQ. I still wish sometimes when he was driving outside, he would sometimes like slow down, find an additional layer of players that are coming behind him because he opens up so much space because he's so big and he's so fast. Like everybody's going towards him, and if he could just learn to find the trailer, there's so many open opportunities when he's on the ice, right? So in a way, it's infuriating because the guy has so much potential. Like if he just had a little bit more vision to his game, but listen, like put that aside, his energy and his physicality, are beyond criticism over the last little while. So huge kudos to him. If there's a rumor, I don't know if you have this later, but apparently Kent Hughes refused a first round draft pick for him from a team. That shows you kind of the value that the Habs feel that he has, right? So pretty interesting. Really good timing in a year where some of the pieces that we were hoping to trade are have not really panned out. Whether it's Hoffman and Dadanoff that I just haven't, DeWayne or any Armia, any of those pieces that we thought might be able to play themselves onto another team that just hasn't happened. And then you have other players that like Monahan and Edmondson that we thought were going to be really critical strategic pieces that would be able to move. So out of all those pieces, he's the one that's playing himself out of Montreal, maybe. But so for me, he's the one that stood out, other than the Laval line, which is kind of the obvious one.
Yeah, I think he got promoted the first line, so that motivate him to play harder as possible. And then the second thing to take the spot of Cole Caulfield with the, so that helped him do a little bit more. So you can see his energy was increasing all week for him. He got now 14 goals or 15 goals since the beginning of the season. I have to go consensus with Kirby Doc. It's no matter who he play again. It's no matter who play with, and he continues to performing every single
I
game.
love him.
He make an
Love him.
impact on in every dimension of the game in every area, and he can go last night again. It's no matter the score, he was still carry on, create opportunities. And yesterday was play with two other winger. He played with Hoffman and
Yeah.
Dadanoff yesterday, and you can
Yeah.
go the game before that. He would play with Allen, and you can. So he adapt with everybody, and he's getting better face off overall. And but again, he continues to produce with every aspect of his game is so much developing properly by the Montreal Canadiens. And I think for me, it's just like, because when you have a slump, usually player doesn't show up. You have a really bad, they just follow the team, but it's no matter for him. He fight this week again, fights away first time with the Montreal Canadiens. He got 9 points this month. He's the number 1 in 13 game. And he had 5 goals. That's the most goal in this month for the Montreal Canadiens. So overall, I have to go with Josh Anderson. We know talk about the line for like you said, the line of the Laval Rocket at 12 points. Send the call up all three together. And then I will just mention a little bit plus. I know he make a mistake last night, the last goal, but the for me, it's about his confidence or he's so much his fun players, Justin Barron, on different ways, like better on defensive zone. I think he understood something. You don't have to be physical. You just need to be at better position yourself with the defender, with the offensive player and the puck. To stop someone in the corner, you don't have to go put the guy over the glass and to foul him but down. It's no matter. It's just how you can pick it up the puck the properly the right way. And I think Byron for me is like more and is more impressive on that side of this game. When you have some kind of offensive, you have 4 points in the last 5 games. Yesterday you have no, so it's 6 games now. So I have to give credit for the young men. Another product of the Laval Rocket, following by those 3 players call up. So I think for me was the one I was just mentioned to you for this week for the Montreal
One thing
Canadiens.
though, but before we move off is very sneakily, Doc is only 5 points behind Suzuki now for the team lead in points.
Yeah, we'll go
Let's
talk about
pause.
Nick Suzuki in a little bit
Okay,
later.
good.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
as nobody's a good point to remind everybody, is slowly
Yeah.
populates his best season in NHL, by the way. Great comments from the Brain Cat yesterday about Kobe Doc. If you have a chance to watching on
Oh, yeah, I
NHL.com.
missed that. I missed that.
It's always nice to hear some other voice, other effect. It's not inside of the organization, ex-teammate about Kobe Dak. Really, for me is a surprise of the year. But a lot of things happening during the week. Again, it's a lot of big news. Injury update for the Montreal Canadiens. We got a couple of things. First of all, we won't talk about Cole Caulfield. Cole Caulfield met the media this week during I don't know, it was at the end of the week. I think it was Thursday or Friday. Talk about his injury, this happening, everything like that. So let's listen a little bit for about 1 minute. Cole Caulfield in English, where he talk about his injury, Marco.
Yeah, I mean, this happened the first time before Christmas in Dallas, and just an awkward fall. Kind of put it back in myself a couple seconds later, and it wasn't too bad. Second time was in Nashville, same thing kind of happened, and that time was a little more painful, but our medical staff has done a great job with kind of doing some rehab work on it and kind of making me feel 100% in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, Josh Anderson, our team, had it done by the same doctor that I'm gonna be getting it done by. So he's come back. I've had conversations with him this past couple weeks, and also another guy that I'm pretty close with is Zach Werenski. He got it done just about 8 weeks ago. So pretty tight with him, and just to have guys that I can kind of communicate with, and they've gone through it pretty recently. So it's a lot to learn, and it's good to have people around.
So what's Cole Caulfield? The first question I asked him how this happening during the season. He explained there was a game against Dallas Stars, then the Nashville Predator. Then the second question was about how he feel about injury. If he talked with some fun players in NHL, first his teammate Josh Anderson got that kind of injury. It took him about 7-8 months to come back. Like 100%, his shoulder it feel better compared to one did not have any surgery. Finally, he contact with Zach Werenski, his teammate with Team USA national team. Talk about just Zach got this one a couple months ago. And then he's going to be on the surgery. Look like it's Wednesday by the same doctor did for Josh Anderson. So honestly, Marco, just give us a bit more what you think about that injury and how you feel about the press conference of Cole Caulfield.
Yeah, he so now that there I think it was RDS found, and they kept looping back the 2 plays against Dallas and Nashville where he got hurt. And I remember those plays. I couldn't remember them, but then when you see them again, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. He looked pretty hurt, right? Like I think it was Ekholm in Nashville that kind of got him pretty good there, kind of like coming across the ice. So, good job in the press conference. I think the key thing that we learned is he didn't want to stop playing, right? Like if Montreal was in a position to make the playoffs, he'd still be playing. And there's been a lot of talk about that in the NHL. Mikheyev in Vancouver, same kind of thing. he's been playing with an injury since the preseason, and he shut it down. And a lot of people were criticizing him for playing. So a lot of it's kind of a theme throughout the league. Fan bases criticizing their medical staff and everything else. But I think what we learned from the Mikheyev situation is that it's like what we were talking about on HABS Brunch last week, where it's really difficult to convince a player to stop playing. It's really hard to do that. And in this case, I think Montreal did it really well. It's kind of like remember that show on A&E there, Intervention, where they bring in all of your family and they sit you down and try to kind of convince you to do what's in your best interest for your health. Well, I think Montreal kind of sat down, had an intervention with his agency and with Ken Hughes, and so I think they handled it really well. I think the funny thing about this whole thing this week is the whole thing. He came out with the big hat and everything else, so you can see they're going to miss his energy and his sense of humor around the team. And the guy just loves hockey, right? There was that clip of him. I think he stole Josh Anderson's stick, and he was still just like shooting with one arm. And then the trainer, he was like a little kid, right? Like the trainer's like, ah, 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 and he's like, he put back the stick. So it shows you how much this kid loves hockey, how much he's dedicated to it. I don't think he wanted to continue playing just to beef up his numbers for his contract. I think he just loves playing hockey. And this is shooting pucks, just the daily routine of shooting pucks all the time. I think we forget, right? It's this is like part of their lives. It's such a core part of their lives, being a hockey player and everything that comes with that, right? So for him, it's a big adjustment because I don't think he's ever really been injured before. So something that all players go through. And overall, we hope he comes back stronger, not just the shoulder, but as a player, right? More resilient, understanding how to grind through an injury, train through an injury, being able to keep his morale up. These are good learning lessons for a hockey player that inevitably you're going to have to go through. So well handled by the Canadians, and we wish him all the best. And keep that smile, kid. That's what makes you really special. That's why the fans love you. Other than scoring goals, it's all about the positive energy that you bring to our lives. As Habs fans, we're so lucky to have him because he's such a positive kid. So we're gonna miss having him around. Hopefully, they can do some TikTok videos or something with him so that we can at least see him a couple times throughout the rest of the season.
What do you think about his impact of this injury for his contract with the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, we talked about this on House Brunch last week. I don't think it will have too much of an impact from the Canadians' perspective. I don't think management is going to really be impacted by it. I think the fan base, we've heard it on our shows, Coach, that some people just feel it's really risky to sign somebody like this long term. And last week I talked about how there's a difference between short players and small players. Suzuki is kind of a shorter player, but he's very strong, very thick. Martin Saint Louis, he was a short player, but he has legs like tree trunk, and he's a strong guy. Cole Caulfield is small. He's very, very small. And there is risk associated to that. So, like I mentioned last week, if I'm Cole's entourage, I'm encouraging him to take an 8-year deal. Why wouldn't you take the security, especially after living this experience, having this injury? So it might play in our favor. Maybe I think everybody understands that Ken Hughes wants to try to bring him in at or slightly below Suzuki's number. That would be the ideal. I think that's how that both Gordon and Hughes would like to model the Montreal Canadiens like the Boston Bruins. And that's how Boston does business, right? They pay their best players a certain amount, and that's the benchmark. And you're not going to come up. That might change with Pasternak. But Bergeron is going to be off the books, right? So, but you can argue that Pasternak is now their best player, so it makes sense to now pay him more than. But you don't, just because a player's market values is a bit higher, they have a culture in Boston where the players care so much about winning and each other that they look at it from the team perspective. I think that you're still getting fairly compensated, but you take a number that makes sense for the team. So we hope that Ken Hughes is a good salesman, because if he's able to sell the Caulfield camp on that kind of idea, then on va être en voiture, right? Like if we can get him at the Suzuki number or slightly below, then so I don't think it's going to affect it in terms of Montreal being willing to commit to him long term. I don't think it's going to affect it.
I think the case would be 8-8. That would be a good deal for the Montreal Canadiens at long term.
I would take that. I would take that. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the next one. I want to talk about Jordan Munson and Sean Monahan hurt
Yeah.
the Montreal Canadiens. No first pick anymore. Here's what the plan right now here. Just go a little bit what the update. Edmondson from the lower body to upper body, and now we don't expect him. He's not going to be returned before, not returned before after the All-Star game. That's the last update. Could be a little bit longer. We don't know yet. We have nothing else, and it's said by the Montreal Canadiens. The money situation is a bit difficult now. It was at the beginning a 6 week. He came back at a 7 week skating with the Montreal Canadiens. And he have a setback. It looked like didn't escape for the last couple of days. Now we are over 8 weeks. It's going to be 8 weeks next, starting today. And he's still not sure he's going to skate. And that'll bring after the All-Star game, the 12th. From the February 12th to March 3rd, that game approximately 3 weeks at maximum. So, if you trade for the player, you want to see a bit more his condition, what he look like, and his health. And that's for me, I think it's her the first one pick. So my question to you is, what do you think about the situation for both? And do you expect possibility to stay with the Montreal Canadiens because that's a situation, or you believe they're going to be traded and maybe not get the first one pick? You have a team you're thinking where you can go. Let us know.
Yeah. I'll start with Edmondson. The really concerning thing about Edmondson is that it follows the pattern from last year and early this year, where they said at first it was a lower body injury, then it was an upper body injury, then it turned out to be his back, right? And then, Kevin's not here, so we'll be a little bit more critical of the Canadian PR. They have been a lot more transparent, but sometimes, I think the bar is, we always think back to the Carey Price injury that, where they just completely botched it, just nobody had any ideas, they just kept pushing the date and everybody was confused. So I don't think it's to that extreme, but with Edmondson, I find it's kind of like a mystery wrapped in an enigma, you just never know what's going on with that guy. And I know back injuries are tricky, but so that's bad news, really, really bad news. And if you look at the play where he got injured, for sure it's his back. There was no contact. It was while he was pivoting.
It's a twist. That's something happened there.
Yeah.
That's it. He tried to pivot after he got on contact, and then he got stuck.
Yeah. So for sure it's his back. So that's not good news. Teams are going to know that. So that's a bit of a hit. The good thing with Edmondson though is that he does have another year. So if they're not able to flip him this year, we've talked about this, coach. We just have a logjam at the left defenseman position. So I would have moved him if anybody was offering me something at any point during the year. We don't know what they've been offered him so far, but if they had something on the table and they decided to wait, then that might with an asset like that has had that kind of history, that would have been a tactical mistake. But we don't know if that's the case. So
it's
hopefully
not
that
then the
wasn't the
world
case.
at the end of the day. He still have one more year, $3.4 million. He's a good leader. You know what I mean? Like you have other attraction he can bring for Montreal Canadiens. And Montreal Canadiens, if you think about this, we don't have enough defensemen to go up with the Montreal Canadiens as a rookie next season.
I don't know. I think I've you still have you still have Harris, you still have Gooley, that's not here right now, right? And then you still have Matheson, and Jacky, right? So yeah, I think you could definitely by next year, as a call up, maybe Trudeau would be ready to come up as a call up, not for regular duty or anything. You still have Norlinder can come in. He's got some NHL experience.
Yeah, but it's not regular players in NHL. They're not going to go over Iris, and they're already set up with Byron there. So, so the point with Edmondson is not going to be hurt. They leave or not.
I still think you know, it would have been good to move him. Like it's just too much of a logjam at that position. You know, so it is what it is. We'll have to see how it works out for Monahan. I guess I hold more hope with him because, as far as we know, the injury is a broken foot. So it's not that it's fun to have a broken foot. It hurts like a bitch, you know, to have a broken foot, but it's not something as finicky as a ligament or a muscle or something like that, right? So it's very binary, you know, like either it's healed or not, or healed enough that you're not going to hurt it again. The only thing that I'm concerned about is, like we talked about last week, is if they let him play with that broken foot too long and he was overcompensating in his skating and he re-injured or aggravated his hip or something. I hope that's not the case, because then his value would plummet. And again, to me, I this is the reason that I wouldn't sign him long term. A, because I just don't feel in the long term that we need him, and I would rather redirect that money somewhere else. But let's see, you know, like hopefully it was just the broken foot and they're just being careful. If I'm a team that's looking to get him, like we've heard Colorado would be a good fit, and I agree he would be a good fit there. Edmonton apparently is in on Bukestad from from Phoenix or from Arizona. So, you know, teams like that, you know, that might be looking for some depth with a really versatile guy like Sean Monahan. For me, I would get him as soon as possible. You know, I don't really. Why are you waiting? Like, you don't really need to see him play. Like, you know who Sean Monahan is. As to me, if I'm really interested in Sean Monahan, I want to get him as soon as possible. That way, you know, obviously there's going to be a medical evaluation for the trade before you do it, but bring him in now into your environment, and that way you can manage him so that he's ready for the playoffs. You know, at least you can control the asset more that way. So if you're Colorado and you've really identified Monahan as the guy that you want to get at the deadline, just go get him. Doesn't like I don't understand this whole idea of
It's
waiting.
because
Like if you
he's
know
not
the
ready to
timeline,
play. Like maybe he
I
will not
get it.
play in the next 3 weeks. Maybe have a prone injury, so I'll be really careful about that. To give something an asset. Now he's not play after that. Now you miss maybe another opposite to get both of that, whatever it is, in return. So that's
Yeah,
the
but
reason they
usually
have
you
to
can do
wait
a
until he
medical
can play a
evaluation.
couple of games.
But when they do these trades, you can do a medical evaluation of a player.
But it's not
You know,
confirmed he did not
before.
play yet. Like you have a complete, but until he did not play, you don't know exactly what he looked like.
To me, that seems like a very superficial metric to look at, or a very superficial amount of data. Because if Montreal, okay, so let's say, you know, okay, they play him. What does that really mean? Okay, he suited up for a game and played okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not, you know, he's not in danger of missing more time, because because the injury is susceptible to being re-injured or something else. So to me, playing a couple games, if I was a team, I would much more rely on the data that I get from the medical evaluation that I do for my own team. I'm not an expert on how this works, but I think the way that it works is the team that would be getting the player asks for all the medical documentation of the player, and maybe there's even the possibility for their own doctors to look at them before the trade is finalized. But it's an interesting question. Either way, you know, like I mentioned off the top, like these are probably these are the two assets that I think have the most potential to get us the biggest return, and we know how good of a draft it is this year. So it's you know, it kind of pivots everything to Anderson as being your real opportunity to get that first round pick.
Yeah, they're not going to get that
Which,
first one anymore for sure. That's definitely about that
yeah,
one over there. That was the question about this. Let's move on now for other thing we have. First, I want to mention to you the Laval Rocket and Impact for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm talking about Harvey Pinard, Peseda, of course, you know, he's ex Laval Rocket, Belzile, and Justin Barron. We talked a little bit about them a couple of minutes ago, but um, what do you think happening with them and the team, like the last couple of games? What they bring at the team where we don't have Sonny Beginning? Like some people said, wow, for the first time we have a real four line, everything. And then that would bring to what's next after that? So all together, try to answer my question, like what's next? Because after the All-Star game, maybe Martin's coming back, maybe Armia's coming back, maybe Jonathan Drouin's coming back, at least three of them with the Montreal Canadiens. So what happening with the roster for the Montreal Canadiens at the 12th February? I don't think so. Drouin will be traded. I don't think so that will be traded and anybody else. So is it an easy part to get let down, Pesera and Harvey Pinard?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's well, so first of all, I think the reason that this everybody's reacting so positively is kind of what we started the show off with, right? It's the dog days of winter, right? So it's a time of year where NHL teams, they look at their schedule, they're like, oh man, there's still quite the grind here, and so bringing in, some young players or bring up some players from your AHL affiliate is a good idea. It's a good tactic to re-energize your club. You're seeing that even in Ottawa, right? So yesterday Giroux was playing with Ridley Gregg, and definitely brought a lot of energy to the team. He's played really well since he's been called up. So it's a common tactic that teams will use. In this case, it was needed, right, just because of all the injuries. But so I think that's a positive impact that they've had to the team. In terms of the reality of what will happen and when some of these injured bodies return, you know, I think fans need to manage their expectations. Like, RHP, who's really the only true prospect out of those three. Like Pizzetta, he's a utility player, energy player. Would he be an NHL player in other organizations? Maybe, right? But he's a marginal NHL player. Belzil is a marginal. He's a tweener, right? Like, but you know, Harvey Pinard has the potential to be a regular NHL player, in my opinion. Not a third line player, but certainly at least a fourth line player that could, give you some positive minutes, be a role player, utility player that plays kills penalties, things like that. So coach, this is the same question we've been asking ourselves since October. And it's the only thing that I've been a bit critical about Hugo is, they've made the easy trades. They've traded to Foley. They've traded Sherratt last year. Anything that had a lot of trade value, they've been able to move those. And, depending on who you are, they've been very successful in the return that they've gotten for those. So kudos for that. But in all honesty, it's pretty easy. The hard thing is moving out these problem contracts. So they haven't been able to do that this year. Some of them, it's not a huge deal, like Dadonov and Drouin. They're on expiring contracts.
It's not a contract to trade. Like, it's a UFA. The one you want to talk about is Juan Armia, Gallagher, Josh Anderson. But because Dadonov and Drouin are UFA, it's not like. And at the flip side, think about this: 22 of the 32 teams are salary cap problem. So
I get it.
You cannot, at least if you gave Caden Cooley with that enough.
Nah, come on.
First one pick with that enough. Like Monahan did.
No.
That's what he did. Nah. They give the first one pick for Monahan with Monahan. So if you want to give that enough, you have to give a first one pick.
Listen, I didn't say it was easy, right? But to me, you're right. The value of moving Drouin and Dadonov at this point is zero. At the beginning of the year, if they would have been able to move them for anything, it would have been good value because Harvey Pinard could have been up with the team almost all year. They would have had another roster spot for him to play.
Yeah, but they have no money. Like Toronto have no money. Washington have no money. Tampa Bay have no money. Florida have no money. Like, you look about all the team in the playoff. Which one have no money? They have money. Nobody.
Teams, no. But you're not necessarily like maybe it's not a team like that, right? Like, and maybe you keep half the money. But listen, like there's creative ways to like. I'm not saying a first round pick, like but that would have been the ideal thing is for that to happen. So until that happens, it hasn't happened. So to me, the reality is that the players that we're talking about, RHP in particular, unfortunately, unless the injuries don't come back, then there's just not a roster spot for them because the alternative is you send Dadonov to Laval or Hoffman to Laval. And I think you were highly against doing that because then you lose the guy forever, or kind of thing, right? Like that kind of argument. Like if you send a veteran to Laval, then you pretty much you've lost him, right? And it's probably not great for. It's not like we have a whole bunch of like high end prospects in Laval. So even if he went there and was a total asshole to
But the
everyone,
flip
like
side, the last couple of weeks, Dadonov play better. Drouin that play better.
yeah,
So possibly
yeah,
there, the trade line, they can trade for a 4 or 5
maybe,
round pick if you have a
maybe,
kind of retaining money, if they have them or whatever it is.
maybe. But short answer, unfortunately, like as those bodies come back, those guys are going to go back down. That's just the nature. There's only so many roster spots. It's the salary cap. It's the it's just those constraints that the team is dealing with. It's unfortunate. Fans love RHP and with good reason. Like he brings it every game. Like Martin Saint-Louis says, he gets on base every shift or almost. So you love a guy like that. That's the kind of guy that you want. I heard this thing. I was very interesting. I forget who it was, but have you ever heard of this, Coach? Where certain teams have what they call a phantom roster. So a phantom roster, what they do is they construct the team that they want, and they say, okay, so for our fourth line, excuse me, for the fourth line, for our left wing on fourth line, this is the type of player that we want. For our left wing third line, this is the profile of player that we want. And then, regardless of who you have, your objective is to either draft, continuously draft, trade for players to fill in spots on your phantom roster so that you're constructing your team in that way, right? I think it's very interesting. Regardless of what happens over many years of players getting older, getting younger, if you lose your second line right winger and you know exactly what the role is, then your job as a GM is to go find a player that's comparable to that. I think that's such a smart way to manage a team.
We have
So
two ways
for
about this.
Montreal,
One is called it and steer your team, right? What kind of player you want to
mhm,
get that spot. The second lady we said they would put on the board the money of the on the board. So they would say
yeah,
that right
yeah,
winger third line is $3.5 million. So right wing is so they have all those number with the role specific number about that,
hmm,
and you try to figure out at the end. And but with so many injury, Marco is so hard. Like the long-term
yeah,
injury
yeah,
reserve, the ER, and it's really that's the reason why everybody have an assistant GM for just for the salary cap.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
yeah.
But you have
So
to
to
right.
me,
That's what
RHP is
many team does. That kind of template, I would say.
yeah. So to me, RHP, you know, I'm sure that Montreal's phantom roster or their roster construction has room for a guy like that on their fourth line. Like
So
that's
before
exactly
we
what
have
you
to
want.
move on, we have other things to talk about, right? But my last question, I'm sorry, I cut you just because I see the time in front of me, so I'll try to get 6 minutes. Next season, 2023, 2024. Do you see what you saw the last couple of game and days? Do you see RHP is going to steal the job at Peseta?
Yeah, 100%
Okay, that's what.
for sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what my. I'm on the same page with you. And I don't know it will happen, but I think that will happen for Montreal Canadiens.
yeah, yeah,
I can
yeah.
see that. We move on, Marco, to the next thing. Well, a couple of things to talk about. First of all, Owen BECK, we called up. He was called up for the game yesterday. Then after the game, he was returned to Peterborough
Peterborough.
Pete's and the OHL. Parent was understand, did pretty good about it. But I want to hear from Martin Saint-Louis after the game in French. What you think about the performance of Owen BECK?
Ah oui, il a bien joué. Il a l'air très confortable sur la glace. Ouais. Non, je suis fier du jeune. Puis, c'est promettant. Oh, ouais, non, c'est un joueur de hockey. On l'a vu au camp d'entraînement aussi. Puis, c'est un kid qui a un bon futur devant lui.
It's coming from the Hall of Famer. Whatever he is, a head coach with no experience. He know the game, right? And he's been there. He knows exactly. And you cannot, if you're Owen BECK, you right now can move and go to Peterborough. This is
Pretty
going to
pumped up.
be another boost for the finish of his career in OHL. And I will say something. I was watching before the game. I think yesterday. I think it was the head coach of Montreal Canadiens, coach in Blainville, Bouchard, Joël Bouchard. He said, yes, the only thing we don't want him is to have a bad game, like a turnover, 2 turnover, a -3, and everything like that, because you don't want to destroy the kid at his first game and just as an emergency call, up, because maybe have only 1 game or 2 game to show what he looked like, and not like a 10 game, and then you can explain like what he overall. So it was his wish, and listen. Great words for Martin Saint-Louis, but my question is, okay, what do you think about the performance of Owen Beck last night?
So 2 things. So I agree with you. You don't want him to have a bad game, but in a way, you also don't want him to have a Ryan Paling type game, where he scores a hat trick and then everybody in Montreal goes bananas thinking that he's going to score 3. So perfect game for him. I think I would have liked to seen him maybe at the end. Saying we had the same guys on the ice for like 4 minutes. Like, why not throw the kid out when the net was empty, things like that. But whatever, we're nitpicking. So yeah, I think and I think another important thing, Coach, watching St. Louis' press conference, let's just take a minute to compare how St. Louis talked about his rookie player versus how Sutter talked about his rookie player. You remember what happened with that, right? Like, so again, just a nod of the cap to Martin St. Louis, classy guy, knows how to do interpersonal relationships. So not a Daryl Sutter move, like, okay, sorry, what was his number and how many minutes did he play? Like, so really, really well done. You're right. Owen Beck is going to go back to Peterborough, really pumped up, lots of confidence. Really crazy month for him, right? Like, so not only was he an emergency call up for the Canadiens, he was the emergency call up for Team Canada, and he got traded. That's a lot, So this is a very mature kid. He's the OHL Scholastic Player of the Year last year. So really smart kid. He's got the right priorities. If you saw the interview with his parents yesterday, like, how do you not love that, right? Like, you can just see good people that's what, good people come from good people. So just really easy guy to root for. So really nice experience for him. And for Habs fans who are wondering, well, why did they only call him up for 1 game? Well, those are the rules. Like, it's a very restrictive rule. Like, you have to, like, in order to get called up, like, you've had to call a certain amount of players up from the AHL first, and then the OHL player is not allowed to miss more than 1 game. Like, it's very, very narrow how you
I
can
think
use these emergency call up.
I think the rule is 5 game.
No, like, the OHL, from what I remember hearing, the OHL player is not allowed to miss more than 1 game.
No, but for Marco D'Amico, read last week, the call up for any junior is a maximum 5 game. So you can have call up twice for American Hockey League, and then you can call after 2. You can call any player with entry level contract, but those players cannot play more than 5 game for the call up.
But maybe that's because maybe it turns out that they don't miss more than one of their OHL scheduled games. Like, it could be that they're on a break or something like that.
For me, if I can understand after I saw that, remember yesterday we talked earlier, I don't know, me and you, whatever, we talked about possibly the Warwick is maybe not ready to play. Maybe Suzuki is not maybe ready to play, or Doc. Everybody have a day off, and maybe in case, let's bring up Owen Beck for 1 night, and if he play, less than play, put Whiteman out and play 12 forward, and then if everybody look good, we're going at the next game back home, we're going to let play the Warwick, and everybody now we can return him. That's the way I see that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But again, for Habs fans, it's just great. Like, a nice quelque chose pour se mettre entre là-dedans. Là, c'est comme.
So why not with some prediction we did earlier with Harvey Pinard? Prediction for Montreal Canadiens next season. Do you see Owen Beck with a Montreal?
That's a tough one. I'm going to say no. Or sorry, not for the whole season. Not for the whole season. I think he starts the year. Is he eligible to play AHL next year?
No.
No. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't
I
know.
said they're
That's a
going to
really
use
tough
him
one.
exactly what they did with Savkoski. I think they were going to keep him.
Really? Yeah.
If you
Maybe.
think about on the chart, I wouldn't be surprised if you get him. It would become better to Dvorak during the season, not at the beginning of the season, but during the season he's going to be better at Dvorak at the end of the season.
That's if Dvorak is there next season. Maybe that's another piece too, right? Like if they do move Dvorak in the off season, then that opens up a spot
Because
for
they
him.
lose Drouin, all right, they have only Jack Evans behind Doc and Suzuki. I think they will keep Dvorak for one more year. And after that, he's going to be a UF free the year two from today. And I think it will be a better asset to trade him. And that would give now a chance to see what Owen Beck is, give a pass to Jack. And then, and you know, I was going to ask you which rookie is going to be part of the Montreal Canadiens, but example, if they draft Bedard, Fantilli, and Carlson, all three players playing NHL next season.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, so you never know about
I think it's
that one.
hard. Like that, there's too many variables that we don't know to really like. This is more of a summer question, I think, right? Because we'll know a little bit more.
You're absolutely about this. Suzuki or Doc? We have 4 minutes to go, so I cannot use both. Suzuki or Doc?
Jeez, I think I'm really concerned about Suzuki
No, my
for the
question
last
is that
while.
which one you want to talk about, Suzuki or Doc?
Oh, let's talk about Suzuki because
Okay.
yeah, I think we've talked about Doc already.
Struggling and concerned.
Yeah, well, you took the words right out of my mouth, right? Like, so this summer when he was named captain, I don't know if you guys remember, but the key reason that I was in favor of it, I compared it to Pacioretty, and why I think it was very tough for Pacioretty to be captain. When you're kind of a one-dimensional player, where really the big thing that you bring is goal scoring, it's kind of like making Caulfield captain. It's tougher for you to be the captain and be a leader and be vocal in the room when you're not producing, when you're not doing the one thing that you're supposed to be doing. The reason that I like the idea of Suzuki as captain is because he's usually a player that is multi-dimensional, right? If he's not putting up points on the board, then he's at least going to play well in his zone. He's going to do all the little things right, win key faceoffs, all that. So I think we all know that he's banged up. So we're going to give him a huge mulligan because of that, right? So, but a lot of players are playing banged up. So I'm not, again, I think the amount of points that he's put up, like I believe it's like 8 points in the last 20 something games that he's put up after putting up 26 points in his first 23, like completely like just way lower kind of point per game than he was doing at the beginning of the year. So that's a concern, but I'm a little less concerned about the points and a little more concerned about the energy that he's bringing. So depending on the type of injury that he has, you know, if it's a mobility thing, he's just not able, but he looks like he's getting around the ice pretty well. Like he's still skating pretty good. But to me, that's what it's a bit worrying is we talked about some of the players not getting to the middle of the ice as much as they should. That's been Suzuki's kind of thing before that, saying he's worked with them on, right? Is being able to have a little bit more pace and a little bit more, kind of grind to his game. Like so there's no question that Suzuki thinks the game at a very high level. So he just needs c'est l'expression en français, les bottines, faut que les bottines suivent les babines, that expression. So your boots have to kind of follow your mouth, you know. As a captain, you have to be able to lead by example more than saying the right things. In long losing streaks, we've seen that in the past in Montreal, where Pacioretty or Gallagher would come out after these like 10-game losing streaks, and they just always say the right things, but you just have to be able to do it on the ice. So it is a bit concerning. I still believe in him, and maybe it's just really about the injury. So we just don't know a lot about. Maybe at the end of the year we'll learn that he's been playing with like a torn quad muscle, or like I don't know. We just don't know what it is, but again, it's a little bit concerning for sure.
the last 20 game, he have 1 goal. So he scored the 20 game ago, and then he scored 1 goal. And the last 25 game, he has 9 points for him. The last 3 game is -7.
Yeah.
So it's not looking good for him. Of course, play with Pitlick and Anderson. It's not helping him for sure.
But good players are supposed to elevate players they play with, not the other way around, right?
Yeah, but when you play with Hurt, I think his biggest enemy for is himself, because he cannot control his time management. Until he's not going to control his time management, he's going to suffer, Marco. You cannot play over your minute every time. I don't have the shift. I did not look his shift yesterday overall. But it will be really interesting what happened about this. I was supposed to, another graphic, I was supposed to talk about the only game we have. Let's move on this week. We crossed the 1 minute, but preview the game tonight, the Tuesday night, the last game of the All-Star game, Ottawa versus the Montreal Canadiens at the Bell Center.
The Senators are kind of la bête noire des Canadiens, right? Like, it's just one of those teams that we don't match up well against. It's been like that for a couple of years. It just, I don't know what it is. So, hopefully they'll, again, like the first couple periods last night, we were right there, or like first period and like the beginning of the second period. So hopefully just a better effort overall. Hopefully we see, again, like that top line be a little bit, see some progress from Suzuki. The really crappy thing, Coach, out of all the players that need a break, it would be Suzuki, and he's the guy that's going there. So kind of, you were wondering if maybe he would pull out and they would send somebody else, right? If he's injured. But I know it's a big deal. It's a big honor to go to the All-Star game, but in a way, I was hoping that he would pull out and just kind of go to Aruba for a while and chill out. Maybe. So yeah, send Chris Weidman to the All-Star game. That's who the NHL chose by default last year. So
we go
send
with
Chris
that
Weidman to the All-Star game. Yeah, that enough too. Yeah.
Prospect Montreal, I want to finish with this because there were a couple of players. Kidney consists for another week of 6 points and 2 games. Kidney, unbelievable. Reinhardson, 4 points this weekend. Friday, Saturday, 0 goal, 4 assists. He's right now on the pace to at the same level like Kel McCarr did in NCAA, guys, and freshman. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
See that? Someone told me he's 5'10". Did you hear that?
Yeah, he's now officially 5'10". Yeah.
All right, and Jared Davidson, the age out is going to be 21. He is maybe 21 now. He's at 3 points this week. Joshua Roy scored 2 goals yesterday. Doc finally got a 1 goal, 2 assists with the Boston, a teammate of the Lane Hudson. So I just want to share a little bit at the end of the show what's going on around the teammates.
The crazy thing about our prospects for NCAA is that we have 3 HABS prospects that have been nominated for the Hobey Baker Award.
Yeah.
So there's Dobbs, there's Hudson, and I believe Farrell that are all been nominated for the Hobey Baker Award.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Now, what we said that is they are nominated by the team. From that one, after that, they're going to be a nomination for the top. I think it's 5, if I can recall it, on that one there. But when you get that, guys, you have a chance to read what is that trophy for the reason as a player. That's pretty unique to get those kind of trophy, honestly, Marco. We complete the show now. It's a great show we got today. But before we leave, what you looking for? We're only 1 game this week. Maybe looking for vacation or break or I'll keep because send October together in our time many. We've been here every single day to follow up all the updates. So maybe it'll be a really easy week to refreshing and then regenerate for the end of the season. After that, after the All-Star game, trade deadline, the NHL draft, and then the draft of the summer. So we're going to go on the right direction for the excitement for the Montreal Canadiens.
Absolutely, Coach. Yeah, listen, you're in Thailand. Go enjoy yourself a little bit over the All-Star break. For me, I might be moving here, so it's going to be a busy time as well. So we'll see how that goes. But Guys, thank you very much for joining us for another Habs Brunch. Please hit the likes. Don't forget, like, we read all your comments, so please leave us a comment under this video. We reply to every single comment. We love that you join us every Sunday. If it's Sunday, it's Habs Brunch. Thanks a lot for coming by.
And don't forget to sharing this on your social media. Thanks so much, Marco. We wish you an amazing, great weeks, everybody. And I don't want to let you know, but you are the all-star of the Habs Brunch show.
Oh, wow. I had a 50-50 chance, so that's pretty good.